Hello and welcome 11 commerce students. Today in this business studies class, I will explain to you the classification, the broad classifications of preference share, and for that reason I have just drawn the tabular form of classification. You can see in the board I have written classification of preference shares, and I have divided the classification into four groups, four distinctive categories. What are those categories and on what basis they will be classified? That basis I am going to write first under these arrows. First is with reference to dividend, on the basis of dividend. Second is on the basis of participation, on the basis of participation. Third category is under convertibility. Convertibility. And fourth category, that is with reference to redemption. With reference to redemption. So you can see that preference share can be classified under four distinctive categories on the basis of four references. On the basis of four references, preference share can be classified. The first one as you can see is dividend. On the basis of dividend. So on the basis of dividend, the first one is dividend. On the basis of dividend, preference share can be subdivided into two parts. Number one is cumulative and number two is non-cumulative. First I will explain these two. Cumulative and non-cumulative under the basis of dividend. With reference to the dividend, preference shares are of two types, cumulative and non-cumulative. Now what is cumulative preference share? Cumulative preference shares are those preference shares which carry the right to receive arrear of dividend before the dividend is paid to the equity shareholders. For example, if a company has rupees 10,000 and 7% preference shares of rupees 100 each, and dividend for the years 2010 and 2011 has not been paid, the company earns adequate profit in the year 2012. In this case, the company shall pay 2,10,000 as dividend for 3 years, as the preference shareholder will get the dividend before it is paid to the equity shareholders. So cumulative preference share is that type of preference share where the preference shareholders will get priority and will get their fixed rate of dividend before dividend is paid to any equity shareholders of that company. Now coming to the non-cumulative preference share, the second type. Non-cumulative preference shares are those preference shares which do not carry the right to receive arrear of dividend. That means whatever arrear of dividend it is, if it is not paid, they will not receive that arrear dividend. If any further future dividend is there, that they will receive before the payment to the equity shareholders. But arrear dividend they will not receive. Shareholders should be entitled to receive the dividend only for the current year and not for any arrear, not for any outstanding dues. So this is about cumulative and non-cumulative. Now on the basis of participation, that is with reference to participation again, the preference shares can be divided into two categories. What are those two categories? One is participating preference share and the second one is non-participating preference shares. Now, what is participating preference shares? The articles of association of a company may provide that after dividend has been paid to the equity shareholders, the holders of preference share will also have a right to participate in the remaining profits. The preference shares carrying these rights are called participating preference shares. Preference shares which do not carry the right to participate in the profits remaining after the equity shareholders have been paid dividend are called non-participating. That means those preference shareholders who can participate in the profit after the dividend payment to the equity shareholders are called participating preference shareholders, and non-participating preference shareholders are not entitled to get any dividend after all the things from the dividend from the profit after dividend is paid to the equity shareholders. So this is next. Third category is on the basis of convertibility, and on the basis of convertibility two types of preference shares again can be derived, that is convertible preference shares and non-convertible preference shares. What are these two? Now, convertible preference shares are those preference shares which carry a right to be converted into equity shares. As the name suggests, convertible, that means these preference shares can be converted into equity shares. And as the name suggests, non-convertible, that means these non-convertible preference shares are those preference shares which do not carry a right to be converted into equity shares. They can be converted into equity shares and they cannot be converted into equity shares. Now coming to the last category, that is redemption. Again, based on redemption, there are two types of preference shares. One is redeemable preference shares and the next one is non-redeemable preference share. Redeemable preference shares and non-redeemable preference shares. Now, what are redeemable preference shares? The redeemable preference shares are those preference shares the amount of which can be redeemed by the company at the time specified for the repayment of or earlier. The repayment amount is termed as redemption. And next is non-redeemable. You can call it irredeemable also. Irredeemable preference shares are those preference shares the amount of which cannot be returned by the company to the holders as such shares unless the company is winding up. That means redeemable preference share, in case of redeemable preference shares, the money is returned. It can be refunded after the expiry of a certain period or after a specific period. But irredeemable preference share, the money is not returnable or the money cannot be refunded anymore. Only it is refunded if the company is winded up. So these are the broad classifications as divided according to the basis of dividend, participation, convertibility and redemption. I hope whatever I have explained with the help of this tabular form of classification you have understood. In my next class, I will come up with the advantages and disadvantages the preference shares are having. So till then, goodbye.